The event unfolded precisely 23 minutes into an occasion Adam Schiff believed would cement his legacy. He had entered the East Room, convinced he was the predator finally cornering his long-sought quarry. For 8 years, he had meticulously constructed this persona of a burdened intelligence expert, carrying dark, unspeakable secrets. He imagined this press event was his triumphant final act before a captive audience. He remained completely oblivious to the fact that he was standing directly upon a trapdoor. The arrangement was unlike anything seen before, framed by the White House as a summit for total transparency. It was billed as a direct engagement to heal the lingering scars left by the Russia investigation. President Trump had surprisingly ushered his harshest detractors to the very front seats, granting them the opening salvo. The media was in a state of absolute hysteria, with networks running countdowns to the confrontation. Inside, the air was thick and charged, heavy with the collective breath of 300 journalists packed tight. Television cameras were aimed at the podium, with the precision of sniper rifles waiting for a target. Adam Schiff sat in the prime spot, calmly straightening his shirt cuffs with practiced ease. On his knee rested a notepad scribbled with inquiries specifically engineered to be impossible to answer. He had mentally practiced the timbre of his voice to sound stern, disappointed, and authoritative. He intended to grill the president about the Trump Tower meeting, and the endless smoke, he insisted, proved a fire. Glancing around the room, he offered subtle nods to his sympathetic allies within the press corps. At that moment, he felt completely untouchable and ready for the kill. At exactly 2 o'clock, Donald Trump entered the room without his usual boisterous rally energy. There was no loud music blaring from the speakers to announce his arrival. He walked in with a slow, deliberate pace, clutching a thick black binder firmly under his arm. He appeared calm, yet there was a dangerous, focused intensity behind that stillness. He set the heavy binder on the podium, adjusted the microphone, and stared straight at Adam Schiff. "Thank you all for joining us today," Trump began, his voice surprisingly steady and low. "For 8 long years, this nation has been ripped apart by a persistent and damaging falsehood. It was a lie repeated endlessly by individuals who absolutely knew the truth was otherwise. These people used their security clearances and classified briefings as shields to deceive the American public." Schiff tensed up in his seat, expecting a personal insult, but this felt ominously different. "Today," Trump continued, "I am officially declassifying the truth, revealing every single hidden document." He picked up a small remote control and looked down at the front row. "Senator Schiff," Trump said politely, "you have the first question, so please, go ahead." Schiff rose to his feet, took the microphone, and felt the heavy gaze of history upon him. "Mr. President," he began, projecting his voice to ensure it carried to the back of the room, "for years there have been documented contacts between your campaign team and Russian operatives. The American people deserve to know why you have consistently tried to hide these relationships. Furthermore, they need to know why you ignored the intelligence community's grave warnings about compromise. It was a flawlessly constructed inquiry that assumed guilt and sounded incredibly serious." "That is a great question," Trump replied, refusing to deflect or attack Schiff's character. He simply pressed a button on the remote he was holding behind the podium. Behind him, 2 massive LED screens suddenly flickered to life, commanding the room's attention. A document appeared, not a tweet or a graphic, but an official government record. It was stamped "Top Secret" with a heavy red line struck through it and a new declassification stamp. "This," Trump stated, while pointing to the screen, is the official transcript from March 2017. The Gang of Eight includes leaders from both parties and the intelligence committees. You were there, Adam, and we can clearly see your signature on the attendance log. The text on the screen was magnified, appearing crisp, bureaucratic, and utterly undeniable. The subject line read FBI Counterintelligence Assessment regarding Trump campaign and Russia. The findings stated that investigators had found no evidence of coordination, conspiracy, or collusion. It noted the investigation was ongoing, but no credible intelligence supported the hypothesis of coordination. The specific words, "no evidence," were highlighted in bright yellow for everyone to see. Trump read aloud, March 15, 2017, the FBI looked you in the eye and told you this. They explicitly informed you that they had found absolutely no evidence of any coordination. Trump looked down at Schiff, who remained standing with the microphone hanging loosely by his side. You heard that, Trump stated, and you signed the paper acknowledging that you heard it. That was a Wednesday, Trump noted, before clicking the remote control once again. Now, Trump said, let's see exactly what you did on the very next day, Thursday. Schiff's heart began to hammer violently against his ribs as he realized what was coming. He remembered the interview and the surge of power he felt when he gave it. But looking at the cold proof on the screen, the context had violently shifted. He was no longer the hero of this story, but was rapidly becoming the villain. 78 million people were watching this transformation occur in real time. The air in the East Room seemed to vanish, sucked out by the collective gasp of the press. On the screen, the classified briefing log from March 15th remained frozen like a verdict. Adam Schiff stood paralyzed in the front row, trapped in the harsh glare of the lights. Donald Trump did not give him a chance to breathe before pressing the button again. The screen split, keeping the FBI document on the left, while a video player appeared on the right. This is the very next day, Trump narrated, his voice sounding clinically detached. Less than 24 hours after leaving the secure briefing room, you went on Meet the Press. The video began to play, and the audio boomed clearly through the room's speakers. There was a younger, eager Adam Schiff leaning into the camera with grave concern. He wore that familiar expression of deep patriotic worry that became his trademark. In the video, Schiff said, "Chuck, I cannot go into specifics due to classification, but I can tell you that I have seen more than circumstantial evidence of collusion. There is direct evidence of deception and evidence of a relationship that is concerning." Trump paused the video, freezing Schiff's face in mid-sentence, looking self-righteous. Trump turned to the real Adam Schiff, who was standing 10 feet away looking like a ghost. "More than circumstantial evidence," Trump repeated, "is what you told the entire world." He pointed to the document on the left. "But the FBI told you 24 hours earlier there was nothing." "So," Trump asked, leaning over the podium and locking eyes with Schiff, "I have a simple yes or no question for you right now. Were you lying to the FBI in the briefing, or were you lying to Chuck Todd on television?" The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. This was not a political debate where one could pivot to broad themes. It was a binary trap where two contradictory facts were displayed side by side. One of them had to be a lie, and there was no middle ground. Schiff raised the microphone, his hand trembling with a subtle vibration visible to everyone. "Mr. President," Schiff said, his voice straining for authority but sounding thin, "you are cherry-picking a single initial assessment from the early stages of an investigation. As you know, intelligence evolves, and there were indeed contacts." "Stop!" Trump commanded, not with a shout, but with the snap of a whip. "Do not use the word evolved, because the FBI explicitly said no evidence." You claimed direct evidence, which is not evolution. It is total fabrication. You looked the American people in the eye and used your position to sell a lie. You told them to trust you because you had seen the secret papers. You knew they couldn't see the papers and banked your career on them staying classified. Well, they are not classified anymore. And the shield is gone, Trump stated. You scared the country and told grandmothers in Ohio their president was a Russian agent. You told soldiers their commander-in-chief was a traitor, causing millions to lose faith. And you did it, Trump said, pointing to the date on the document, knowing it wasn't true. You walked out of that secure room, put on your makeup, and you lied. Schiff tried to interrupt again, mentioning the Mueller report found instances. The Mueller report found no conspiracy, Trump roared, slamming his hand on the podium. Just like the FBI told you in 2017, and just like the CIA told you. Trump took a breath to compose himself, looking out at the typing press corps. But it wasn't just once, was it? Trump asked softly. If it was just one mistake, maybe we could forgive it or assume confusion. He clicked the remote, and the screen changed to display a massive timeline. A horizontal line stretched across the display, marked with red dots above and blue dots below. We checked the records, Trump said, matching every time you entered the Schiff. We compared those visits with every single time you went on television. May 2017 briefing says no changes, yet you go on CNN claiming evidence is hiding in plain sight. In July 2017, the briefing says the Steele dossier is unverified and likely fabricated. You go on MSNBC and claim the dossier is proving to be accurate. It is a pattern, Adam, Trump said. It is not a mistake. It is a strategy. Schiff stood there, the microphone feeling like a piece of heavy lead in his hand. He realized with terrifying clarity that Trump was not debating him, but dismantling him. He was taking the one thing Schiff relied on, his insider credibility, and turning it into fraud. You were not an investigator, Trump said, looking at him with something approaching pity. You were a screenwriter, writing a spy novel for CNN using the seal of Congress. But the book is over, Trump said, and we are just getting to the plot twist. Because lying about the briefings wasn't enough for you, you had to leak them too. A new document appeared on the screen, which was a detailed phone log. Schiff's stomach dropped because he knew those numbers, and he knew those dates. The trap hadn't just sprung, it was closing tight around his neck. However, Donald Trump wasn't ready to talk about the leaks just yet. He wanted to finish the autopsy of the lie first, so the audience understood the scale. One lie is a mistake, Trump said, clicking the remote to clear the document. Two lies is a coincidence, but what Adam Schiff did was an entire industry. The screen behind Trump transformed, replacing the static documents with a dynamic scrolling graphic. It looked like a stock ticker showing dates, network logos, and specific quotes. My staff did a little project, Trump said, gesturing to the wall of data. We went back through the last 8 years to find every time you claimed collusion. He paused, letting the timeline scroll endlessly to show the sheer volume. We counted 227 times, Trump said, letting the number hang in the air. That is how many times you looked at the American people and claimed proof. Trump pressed a button, saying, "Let's watch the highlight reel." A video began to play, edited for maximum impact, cutting rapidly between clips. Cut to Schiff on CNN claiming direct evidence, then on MSNBC claiming more than circumstantial. Cut to Schiff on The View, citing ample evidence, then on ABC citing non-circumstantial proof. The clips came faster and faster, showing Schiff in different ties and different studios. The background changed, and the interviewer changed. But the deceptive line never did. It was a drumbeat of deception, repeating the word evidence over and over again. In the corner of the screen, a digital counter ticked up with each clip. Adam Schiff stood in the front row, forced to watch a montage of his own dishonesty. It was agonizing, and the cumulative effect of seeing it all at once was devastating. Seen individually, they seemed authoritative, but back to back, they looked like the ravings of a con man. The counter hit 227, and the screen froze on a smug close-up. Trump turned back to the real Schiff, whose face was drained of all color. "We checked the briefing logs for every single one of those dates," Trump said softly. "Every single briefing said no, and there was never a moment the FBI found conspiracy." "So, Senator," Trump asked, "what evidence were you talking about? Was it invisible? Was it imaginary? Or was it just a script you wrote?" Schiff cleared his throat, trying to summon the indignation that had served him so well. "Mr. President, the intelligence picture is complex, and contacts raised grave counterintelligence concerns. Even if they didn't meet the legal standard, I was speaking to the national security threat." "You said collusion," Trump's voice boomed, cutting through the spin immediately. "You didn't say counterintelligence concerns. You said you had proof of a crime. You said I was a traitor, which isn't evolving intelligence. It is systematic lying. You built a career on a phantom, becoming a star and raising millions. You got book deals, all because you claimed to have a secret that didn't exist." The room was silent, and the reporters looked down at their notepads in shame. "But lying on TV is just dirty politics," Trump said, moving back to the podium. "What you did next," Trump said, reaching for the remote, "is a crime." The timeline vanished, the screen went black, and a complex network diagram appeared. In the center was a picture of Adam Schiff, with lines connecting to major news organizations. "Let's talk about the leaks," Trump said, identifying the diagram as phone records. "When classified information hits the front page, the FBI investigates who talked to reporters." Trump pointed to the screen. "These are FBI counter-leak investigation files declassified today." He zoomed in on a specific section of the web dated December 12, 2016. At 4:47 p.m., a call is placed from your personal cell phone to a CNN producer. The call lasts 15 minutes, and the very next morning, CNN breaks a major story. The story cites sources familiar with the briefing, and you were the source, Adam. He moved to the next point, showing a call to the New York Times on December 18th. 2 days later, the Times runs a story citing congressional sources sharing evidence. "It is a perfect pattern," Trump said. "Call then story, call then story. 43 times you took classified secrets and gave them to your friends to hurt me. Then you would go on television and say the report is disturbing, confirming your own leak." Schiff stepped forward, his voice sharper, claiming these were characterizations and inferences. "Members of Congress speak to reporters every day as part of our oversight duty," he argued. "Oversight?" Trump snapped. "Leaking classified intelligence about a sitting president is a felony. You weaponized your clearance and used government secrets as political ammunition. You knew the FBI was finding nothing, so you leaked misleading snippets to keep the narrative alive." "That isn't oversight, Senator," Trump said. "That is propaganda." He pointed to a call on January 10th to David Ignatius at the Washington Post. An hour later, he runs the story about Mike Flynn's calls, a felony leak. A man's life was ruined, and you were on the phone right before it dropped. "Did you tell him?" Trump asked. "Did you break the law to get a headline?" Schiff didn't answer because to deny it was perjury, and to admit it was confession. He stood there while the silence stretched out, damning him more than any answer could. He can't answer because the phone records don't lie, Trump told the audience. For 8 years, you said I was the security threat who couldn't be trusted. But looking at this map, it looks like the real security threat was the chairman. You leaked and you lied, Trump said, but fabricating evidence in a hearing is worse. Let's talk about the parody, Donald Trump said, adjusting the papers on his podium. The atmosphere shifted from shock to grim fascination as reporters watched Schiff be defrocked. We've seen the lies and leaks. Now, let's talk about the theater. On September 26, 2019, you held an impeachment hearing with millions watching. You decided to read what you claimed was the transcript of my call with President Zelensky. The screen split again, showing the official transcript on the left and Schiff on the right. Let's listen to what you told the American people, Trump said as he pressed play. In the video, Schiff looked into the camera and began to read with dramatic flair. I want you to make up dirt on my opponent, and I'm saying this 7 times. Trump paused the video and repeated the phrase, make up dirt. I am looking at the transcript, Adam, and I do not see those words anywhere. I don't see listen good, and I don't see 7 times you made them up. You sat in a congressional hearing and read a fictional script that you wrote. Schiff stepped forward with a flushed face, stating it was a parody and characterization. It was meant to convey the gravity of your corrupt demand, he argued. Parody, Trump interrupted incredulously. You are leading an impeachment inquiry, not Saturday Night Live. It is a legal proceeding, Trump said, pulling a card from his pocket. Let's see if the audience got the joke, because 63% believed those were my actual words. You tricked them and fabricated evidence to make me sound like a mob boss. That isn't oversight, Trump said, pointing a finger. That is fraud. You have legal immunity in Congress, so you won't go to jail for lying there. But it proves you are willing to manufacture reality to get what you want. Schiff stood silent as the fake dialogue next to the real text looked pathetic. But you didn't just make up the call. You also made up how it started. Let's talk about the whistleblower, who we were told was a brave independent patriot. You went on Morning Joe and were asked directly if you had spoken to him. Trump played the clip where Schiff replied, "We have not spoken directly with the whistleblower." Clear answer, Trump repeated. Now let's look at the visitor logs for your office. A document appeared showing logs from the Intelligence Committee's secure spaces. On August 12th, the whistleblower calls your staff director for 43 minutes. On August 14th, there is an in-person meeting at your office with your top aides. On August 28th, your staff helps him find a lawyer and draft the complaint. You didn't just speak to him, Adam. You coached him and knew exactly what he would say. You went on TV and said you hadn't spoken, which is a direct, verifiable lie. You weren't the judge. You were the architect who built the trap and baited the hook. That is coordination, Trump said, and hiding it is deception. Schiff opened his mouth to explain the difference between committee staff and himself, but he stopped, knowing that splitting hairs was exactly what a guilty person did. You coordinated with the accuser and used a fake process to try to overturn an election. But speaking of elections, Trump said darkly, let's talk about the laptop and the 51 spies. The air in the room grew heavier, as everyone knew this was the final blow. The Russia investigation was history, but the Hunter Biden laptop story was a fresh wound. You love to talk about Russian disinformation, Trump said, but in 2010, you created it. Trump clicked the remote and the screen went black, declaring this the smoking gun. The East Room was quiet enough to hear the hum of the hard drives. Donald Trump stood at the podium, his expression shifting to something quieter and more dangerous. He looked like a man holding the final piece of a puzzle that would change everything. "There is one more lie," he continued, "one that saved a candidate and changed an election." In October 2020, the New York Post publishes a story about a laptop belonging to Hunter Biden. You knew exactly what to do, so you went to your playbook and yelled Russia. This is a classified briefing log from October 14th, the day the story broke. The FBI briefed the Gang of Eight, and the forensic analysis confirmed the data was genuine. The Bureau found no intelligence indicating the laptop was part of a Russian disinformation campaign. The FBI told you it was real, it wasn't a hack, and it wasn't Russia. 2 days later, you went on CNN with Wolf Blitzer, Trump said, playing the video. Schiff was on screen saying the smear clearly comes from the Kremlin. You sat there knowing the FBI had just told you it wasn't the Kremlin. But you didn't just lie, Trump said. You organized a massive cover-up. A new document appeared, showing an email chain from Schiff's committee staff. It says the chairman feels it is critical to frame this story as a Russian operation. You wrote the famous letter of 51 spies, Adam, Trump said. You got 51 former officials to sign their names to a lie that you knew was a lie. And look what happened, Trump said, showing headlines of Twitter and Facebook banning the story. You censored the truth and used your clearance to trick media into silencing a story. That is election interference, Trump said. You rigged the information war. You knew the laptop was real, but created a fake letter from fake experts. Schiff looked at the floor, seeing his master stroke exposed as a political operation. You cheated the voters, and you cheated history, Trump said simply. Trump walked back to the podium, looking spiritually exhausted but unburdened. We are done with the slides, he said. Turn them off. The screens went black, and the room fell into a deep silence. I have one last question, Trump said, looking directly at Adam Schiff. The spectacle was over, and now there was only the cold, hard reality of the reckoning. We have gone through the record, seeing the briefings, the leaks, and the emails. So, Senator, I want to ask you the question you have been asking me for 8 years. How many times did you lie to the American people? Schiff opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Was it the 227 times you claimed collusion when the FBI said there was none? Was it the 43 times you leaked secrets and then confirmed your own leaks? Was it when you fabricated a transcript or coordinated with the whistleblower? Was it when you organized 51 spies to lie about the laptop to win an election? Trump's voice rose with each question, building a crescendo of accountability. How many times did you use your security clearance as a weapon against the people? You spent 8 years calling me a liar and a traitor, tearing this country apart. But the whole time, Trump said, gesturing to the screens, it was you. You were the one holding the smoking gun and hiding the truth. The room was frozen as 78 million people watched at home. They waited for the skilled prosecutor to defend himself, but he said nothing. There was no spin that could survive the receipts, and no context to explain the signatures. Trump shook his head. You don't have an answer, because the answer is thousands. You lied so many times you forgot what the truth even looked like. The American people deserved the truth, but instead, they got you. This press conference is over, Trump said, turning to walk out of the room. The spell broke and the room erupted into absolute chaos. Reporters jumped to their feet, shouting questions at the man in the front row. Adam Schiff couldn't answer, so he grabbed his notepad and pushed toward the exit. His aides tried to block the cameras, but the swarm was too thick. He looked like a man trying to outrun a tsunami as he pushed through the double doors. Within minutes, the internet exploded, and the clip hit 93 million views. The high-resolution images of the logs were downloaded millions of times. For 8 years, Schiff was the hunter. But in 90 minutes, he became the hunted. Trump had left behind a digital crater, with the Schiff dossier crashing the White House server. On cable news, the reaction was a mix of shock and desperate scrambling. Anchors who had booked Schiff hundreds of times were now staring at his signature on the logs. "It is hard to reconcile," a legal analyst admitted, "because he knew and he lied." By the next morning, 17 ethics complaints were filed and the DOJ announced a review. The most brutal blow came when the Senate voted 67-33 to remove him from the committee. 17 Democrats crossed the aisle to cut him loose and save themselves. His approval rating crashed 29 points in a single week, a historic drop. Schiff went into hiding, canceling town halls as he became politically radioactive. 6 months later, he stood in a half-empty ballroom to announce he would not seek re-election. Everyone knew he was quitting because internal polling showed him losing by 38 points. A newcomer named Katie Porter had launched a campaign with the simple slogan, "Truth Matters." 1 year later, Donald Trump sat on the patio at Mar-a-Lago speaking with a historian. "I didn't do anything to him," Trump smiled. "I just turned on the lights." He destroyed himself because he thought he could say whatever he wanted without being checked. The country is vindicated because they now know who the real liars were. The lesson is that if the documents say no evidence, eventually you get caught. Adam Schiff was not remembered as the man who fought Trump, but the man who lied. To Schiff, someone became a verb in Washington, meaning to lie about classified info. Congress passed an Accountability Act, and the intelligence community overhauled its standards. Every time a politician claimed secret evidence, the people remembered the East Room. Justice had finally arrived, not with a bang, but with a simple black binder.